The Arab League is expected to call on the UN Security Council to pass a resolution creating a joint peacekeeping force for Syria. The group also wants more international support for the opposition and hopes to pile further pressure on the regime. Well, we hope to get some reaction from Cairo a little later on the latest developments concerning the Arab League's meetings there. But in the meantime, let's now cross live to London and talk to author and journalist Afshin Rattansi. Afshin, with the Arab League now looking very likely to be calling for a joint UN peacekeeping mission, foreign intervention is inevitable now, isn't it?
One bunch of dictators talking about another dictator. I think the Arab League is being used presumably as some kind of proxy, because we know that the United States and the European Union have all but said military intervention could happen, should happen. Some sources even saying British special forces already in the ground, so maybe there is already foreign intervention. We know there is some kinds of foreign intervention, though.
But it's there under the guise of a peacekeeping mission. Wouldn't it create peace and therefore create an environment for negotiations?
Look, I think, Bill, there is a role for the UN if it can get past its paymasters, as it were. On Monday, the human rights chief is delivering a talk about human rights at the UN General Assembly. This is carefully timed, as other announcements have been timed. The UN could have a role. I mean, we have heard about Al-Qaeda in Syria now. And if one can police the guns and weapons going into Syria now, that would be a great thing the UN could do, although those borders are notorious. I hear that AK-47s were only $150 to $200 a gun in Iraq a few months ago. They're now $1,500 to $2,000 a gun, which shows the demand for weapons by these Al-Qaeda type insurgents going to support American and British interests in Syria.
Well, there's much questioning over the makeup of the opposition. You've just mentioned Al-Qaeda. In effect, are we not seeing Washington and its allies actually supporting Al-Qaeda there, in effect?
Yes, once again, the United States and European Union states, as usual, supporting Al-Qaeda as they did in Afghanistan prior to 9/11. Will they never learn? It is shocking to hear American statesmen like, John McCain calling for intervention, presumably US troops and Al-Qaeda side by side fighting against President Assad of Syria. This really shows up what exactly the Americans are up to. They are not protecting the interests of US citizens and nor European Union leaders. Zawahiri's statement to back any armed attacks. We saw with lethal consequence in Aleppo, 28 dead. In December, 44 dead in Damascus. This is getting out of hand. It is getting dangerous. Let's hope that Turkey, which refused to operate a cordon sanitaire, as could have happened, they see sense, countries like Turkey and of course Qatar, using soft power at the moment to great effect to give a distorted view of what's happening in Syria today.
Talking about the effectiveness of the UN Security Council, a week ago a resolution was vetoed there over concerns of impartiality. We're now seeing the Friends of Syria group forming, which includes the US and its EU allies. Is this in fact a way of bypassing the UN and international law to push forward the agenda from the West's point of view?
What an incredibly dangerous group the Friends of Syria will be. Presumably we'll have Hillary Clinton and the British Foreign Secretary, the EU Foreign Secretaries, and, Mr. Zawahiri himself, all meeting together as Friends of Syria. This is a determined attempt at hegemonic power. It is, I think, going to fail because perhaps President Obama in an election year, even his policy advisors are telling him this could rapidly spiral out of control. And one only has to see that President Assad, from where he sits, can see that his allies, Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, these countries, they'll trade with Syria, so there's not going to be any sanctions. But what is Saudi Arabia up to? What is Qatar up to? It's a real test to the United Nations. It's rapidly getting more and more serious.
Yes, it's interesting. You mentioned the allies of Syria. Some analysts we've talked to believe that Washington actually wants to use this conflict, along with the Arab and other NATO allies, as a means of targeting Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon. You see this clearly as an implication here?
It's obviously reverberating in the background all the time. There are reports now that television studios like ABC News, the graphics rooms, are already preparing graphics and so forth and training their senior correspondents to cover a war against Iran. I think at the moment what seems likely to happen is that people will start to back down from this, but certainly U.S. foreign policy.
Just very briefly, Afshin, will we see, though, Iran actively getting physically involved in Syria itself if we saw foreign intervention? Just briefly, from NATO and the West allies and Arab allies, just briefly.
There have been erroneous reports that Iran is sending in people into Syria. It certainly isn't getting involved in that way at the moment. In fact, Iran has made critical statements against the Assad regime as to how it has been treating its people and too slow to reform. So I don't think Iran, before any full-scale war, would get involved. But of course, if there really was a military attack on Syria, we can expect to see widespread disaster in the Middle East and blowback in the United States. Al-Qaeda must be thinking, well, we'll follow again. We'll work with the US yet again. And who knows, in a couple of years' time, another 9/11 and America will learn again what Al-Qaeda and what Sunni extremism and Salafism means.
Afshin, we'll be talking about this again, no doubt, in the near future. Thank you in the meantime for your thoughts there live in London. Afshin Rattansi joining me. Well, now we